What if I told you that perfectionism wasn't about being perfect? It's about fear. My name is Abby Havermann, and if you like this video, please subscribe, pass it on, and share. I never thought that I was a perfectionist because I always thought of perfectionism as those type A personalities, those OCDs where everything had to be just right. And that was not me. I'm a slob. I would just sort of throw spaghetti at a wall and see if it worked. I never identified with that. But come to find out, perfectionism actually has a much broader scope. Unrealistic high expectations. Well, I never thought I had those because I had such high expectations of myself. I kept telling myself those expectations weren't high. How would I have known that? Well, turns out they were kind of high. Fear of failure? Check. All or nothing thinking? I couldn't really ever wrap my arms around this whole idea of practice or progress. It was all or nothing. It was I succeed or I fail. It wasn't, hey, I'm just going to put value, there's value on the effort. Procrastination. I never really thought I procrastinated, except when I looked back and realized all the things I didn't do because I was afraid of trying, because what if it didn't work? Harsh self criticism, check. Need for control, check. Avoid feedback, God, I would ask for it, but I would just be in knots waiting to hear what it was. Not able to celebrate successes, check. And emotional exhaustion, check. So if you have any of these symptoms, you may suffer from perfectionism as well. And guess what? Behind perfectionism is a whole bunch of fear. Fear that you're not going to fit in, fear that you're going to look like a loser, fear that people will find out that you're a fraud, fear that you might make a mistake, fear that you'll be cast out, fear that it won't go the way that you wanted it to, fear that people will leave you. Perfection is all about fear. It's all about trying to make sure this is what the brain does to try and make sure to keep you safe. Again, it goes back to these really primal drives that we have. And while they're natural in the sense that we're all conditioned into them, they really get in our way. So, if you're beginning to hear yourself in this list and you're one of those perfectionism junkies, it's really important to wrap your arms around this now and embrace those imperfections. And this isn't some, oh, just love yourself talk, self-love, blah, blah, blah. I always hated self-love. It always felt so airy fairy to me. And I was like, I'm not airy fairy. I'm kicking ass and taking names. But you know what? Turns out we need to love ourselves a little bit. We need to embrace the imperfections and be able to recognize that we're human, because we are. And to pretend to let this fear of perfectionism run around in our inner world and pretend that we're not going to make a mistake or we can control everything is really nothing short of arrogance and self importance. I hate to say it. I suffer from it myself, but that is the God's honest truth. So, embracing these imperfections is going to do a lot of things for you. One, it's going to be able to get you to move forward. I talked to someone recently who said that, she's got a program all ready to go. She could just hit a button anytime that she wanted, but she can't because she's too wrapped up in having it to be perfect and thinking, but maybe if I get it this much better, then everything will go perfectly. It's not going to go perfectly. It's never going to go perfectly. And do you even want it to? How boring would life be if everything went exactly the way that you thought it would be? Do you need to know everything? Is there nothing else to learn? This is how we learn. We learn by daring to not be perfect at something and seeing what happens and rolling the dice. Life becomes a lot more interesting that way. So, how do you embrace these imperfections? You've got to sit with that part of yourself that's so afraid of doing something wrong and what that part of yourself thinks it means if you do, or if you look this way or look that way, and just pull that little person into a big bear hug and sit with that part of yourself and understand that it's not the end of the world. Just calm her down. Just rub her back a little bit. Just speak really nice and kindly to him or her and let them know that there's no lion chasing you. This is about conserving your energy. This is about having empathy for yourself. And the greatest thing that happens, not just will you actually move through things and get things done that you weren't getting done before, but when you have empathy for yourself, you have empathy for other people. Because the reason that we get really annoyed with other people is because we're unable to lack empathy for them because we're all in our fear states. And the first step to changing that is to create empathy for yourself. You cannot have empathy for anybody else until you have empathy for yourself. So I hope this was interesting and helpful. And I would love to hear what your struggle with perfectionism is and what you're doing to really begin to embrace your imperfections. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe and pass it on.